Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining the stream. Just do a bit of a volume check. Hopefully that music's not too loud. So this is going to be a probably slightly bizarre stream this evening because I'm running on 30 hours since I last went to sleep. So I pulled an all-nighter and I'm still going. So this might get surreal at some point. Right, so what am I doing? The new framework sections of the ship. I'm trying to make everything consistent moving forward. So, yeah, sure. So I'll kind of give you an update on what I've been up to. I've been experimenting with welding everything properly. A lot of this framework's obviously going to be hidden behind wall panels and floor panels, but once those things get destroyed, I'm keen for it to be just as detailed behind all the surface panels. Yeah, I'll probably end up like hallucinating that this is real or something. So I've got a few pieces here, which as you can see are misaligned. And that's because this particular curve only has 5 panels, whereas this one has 6. And the reason for that is because this side has 2 rooms, and this side has 1, and I need the door to be in the middle. So if I just fly up and out a moment, let's turn off the sheet metal. So this is an overview of C-Deck as it currently is. And what I've been doing over the past week is doing a lot of the framework sections, putting in all the support beams, and just laying out and finalizing all the new corridors. And they're going to be, generally speaking, more interesting layout-wise than they were before. You've got these nice curved sections now, and these will all have windows all the way around. And it will go to a nice stairwell at the end on this side. And then we have our drone facility in here, so you're going to have 3D printing beds, repair bays and things for all the drones / probes. Mirrored on the other side, so you've got another stairwell. And then in the wing sections, here we're going to have a staircase going down 3 decks, so it'll go from C deck all the way down to E deck, and with a seating area either side. So as you sort of emerge into this room, it's going to be sort of a lounge / stairwell. Just somewhere to sit, really. Look out the windows. I turn the lid back on, and it gives you an idea of that space. And then you'll have the pass-through on the outer hull, so anyone working on the outside of the ship can pass through under here, and this will have a nice railing around it, just to stop people plummeting to their doom. I've turned off, or rather I deleted the geometry for the upper section of what would be D deck, because I'm now cutting that into actual pieces. So the minimum crew would be about 60-ish, because the crew is split into 3 shifts. So it's 200 people in 3 shifts, so it's about 60 people per shift. 66.66666. But I suppose if you're all working and not sleeping, like I tend to do sometimes, then yeah, minimum of 66. Will there be in-game currency? Not initially. This is a government body supplied vessel, and the missions and things rewards, I guess, progress in terms of your standing with whoever you're doing missions for, and resources and materials and research. In future expansions, we are planning a sort of a rogue trader, sort of Han Solo, Firefly type feel, where you'll be working your way up through different vessels, buying your next bigger ship, and that will definitely have a currency base to it. But that's 3 DLCs down the line, so you're looking at probably many years from now. And yeah, a lot of the stuff is absolutely contingent on Kickstarter. Yeah, as we keep saying, this will be finished anyway, because this is a hobby for me just as much as it is, a commercial project. So Kickstarter or not, it will get finished. It's just it's going to get finished a lot quicker with Kickstarter, with a lot more features. Gold blessed platinum, yeah, maybe. Probably more likely just credits. Right then, so what I was doing So I now need to cut out some of these floor sections because I was experimenting with making it wider here. So I think I'm going to lose my voice at some point this evening. But I'm going to battle on. I'll plough through it. Yeah, so I did make this wider, which in the end I wasn't feeling. And then you see the difference in engine. I much preferred this smaller lip on the edge. And this is going to be part of the piece that supports the floor. So there'll be a couple of like these screw lugs sticking out of here. And now I'll just have the actual brace for the panels, just bridge over it like that. And same here as well. And this will be wedge shaped, so that'll go up there to meet the same height. So that height. So that should look quite nice once it's done. And again, it will have these brackets and things all over it. So if you were to completely destroy every single panel and ceiling and everything, you know, this is pretty much the bare metal you're going to get back to. Although it will have holes and things cut through it for infrastructure. And where the access panels on the outside will reach through into the things inside. The interior damage is going to be fully destructible up to the point that you get to the bare titanium plating here. So this bit that we're looking at won't be destructible, at least not anytime soon. But if you imagine wall panels all smashed and hanging off, and maybe a bit of plastic stuck to this where the screw's still hanging out of it, so it'll be completely wrecked and trashed on the inside. And then on the outside, if I just turn on the hull, where are we? There. So the ship's going to be covered in hull plating, and if I go up here and look at these ones, each one of these hull panels will be damageable in its own right. So they will display visual damage, they'll be ripped and torn. But again, the actual bare titanium underneath, at least initially, you won't be able to breach through it. So it will look trashed, but there won't be hole penetration. Yeah, and the purpose of these is to mitigate incoming damage. So if this panel here, for example, is completely destroyed, and visually you'll see that, then any impacts you take here won't be mitigated at all. There'll be no reduction in damage. So there'll be a sphere drawn on that impact point, and then anything within that sphere will take damage. So in this case, you've got some FTL coils here. So they'll all take damage based on that impact sphere. And the bigger the weapon, the bigger the sphere, and the more damage it will do. And that applies, you know, anywhere on the ship. So say there was a power conduit running underneath here. If this is where you take damage, that power conduit is what's going to be destroyed. And whatever that's connected to will cease to function. So damage is going to be very much a regional based thing. Where you get hit will matter. Okay, so what I need to do now is fix this bit so it matches that bit. Yes, so hull breaches are planned. Now, actually, that's kind of relevant to why I'm doing this. So, again, I'm building this and sort of thinking ahead while I'm doing it, and you'll notice that each one of these corridor sections is roughly cube-shaped, and there will be a volume in this space, which has things like air pressure, air temperature, air quality, whether or not it's on fire or poison or something. And so this corridor here will be made of a series of cubes which all hold those data points. So let's say this bit in the middle is on fire, then the cubes adjacent to that will slowly catch fire over time, and it will spread from cube to cube throughout the whole ship. And every single part of the ship is going to be split into these cubic sections so that we can do that. And the same with a vacuum. So if you have a hull breach and you have a section of this corridor leaking out into space, then these cubes will propagate that vacuum through the ship until you get to one of these bulkheads. So this will have a door in it, and that will stop. It will stop that data transfer through that door when it's closed. Yeah, anything that can be broken will also be replaceable via 3D printers. The large hull plates on the outside, you'll use some kind of a repair craft to go and fix, but internally you'll just get a crate with a new panel that you can just replace the wall panel with. Yeah, we're leaning away from, I guess, a lot of the stereotypical sci-fi tropes which become too powerful, and they're only made not powerful by the story. So if let's say if we were talking Star Trek, then every single one of these sections would be a force field. You could sort of go zoom, zoom, zoom all the way along and just put force fields all the way down the corridor. That's just too powerful in terms of a device with what we want to achieve here. So, a door will suffice just to block a vacuum, to hold the air in. The game will be translated into multiple languages. German is proving to be challenging because a lot of German words are a lot longer than their English equivalent. So where I've been designing UI panels, I'm having to redesign them to fit the German on. And I'm sure that's going to be true for various languages where some words are just too long to fit. Yeah, at some point, once we've got the string tables and things set up, and once the UIs are a little bit more nailed in place, then yeah, we'll set up some translation. So on this particular ship, the customization is going to be in terms of the interior paneling. So you'll be able to swap the panels out with a different design. So you can have a different style of panel on this deck, for example, but the actual steel framework, the titanium structure of the ship, that is set in stone. But there is a plan in the future to have, I guess the same way that Starfield have done it, have a modular shipbuilding system where you've got the utilities running through the cavities here. There will be start and end points, and those will connect together automatically. So we'll still retain that real systems flow and the real electrical connections, by virtue of the fact that the individual pieces, when you slot them together, will have been designed that way. Yeah, things like tech manuals, instructional videos, that sort of thing. We'll be putting out a lot of that once all this is done. As Oninoni's saying, there's a lot of flux at the moment where, we'll throw something at the wall, it won't quite stick, so we'll change it. Once that settles down, we'll do a lot. Yeah, there's a new trailer planned. We've already got the music written for the new trailer, and it's really, really good. I love the new music. I'm excited to share that with everyone, but I can't make the trailer until this is finished. So what I have left to do now, so the layout of SeaDeck's done. I know what's going where and why. So it's just a case of doing all the tedium of putting in all the panels and things. And then the last job to do really is to cut out the sections on D and E deck. And once I know where the cuts are going to be, then I can organise the panels accordingly. Because the panelling goes along with the framework section. So in terms of a framework piece, layer do I want? So if I was just to copy that up a sec, this represents what would be a framework piece. So this is one of the sections that gets welded together. And that's what the ship's built out of, all these different pieces. But the hull plating would also be confined to that area as well. Or at least the shape and the style of the hull plating will be roughly guided by the actual blocks that construct the ship itself. Or make up the ship's construction, rather. Yeah, A and B deck mostly not changing. Obviously the B deck lounge still isn't actually properly finished, and neither is the B deck corridor. So here we are in B deck right now. So I've still got some update work to do here, and these sections all need wall panels and planters, and obviously the room needs doing. There have been 7 decks traditionally. However, with this addition of an extra piece at the bottom, this is basically E and F decks in the bulk of this area here, and again they'll be largely unchanged as to how they are in the demo, but there will be a non-full deck space below. Now whether or not we call that a deck or not is up for debate. Essentially it's just going to be a shaft full of ladders and capacitor banks for the FTL coils. So it's not really a deck per se, but it will be a space you can get into, and will need to get into to repair things. But I've yet to finalise the shape of any of that yet, so we'll see how that looks once that's finished. So because I've got essentially the same shaped piece but with a different layout, that also changes what's happening here as well. So where we've got the segments on the underlying sheet metal, I have to do 2 separate versions of this to match the panel layout. So if I do this one first, because this one's practically done. The way I'll do this is if we take a copy of that, get rid of that. Essentially, I just want to get the edges from those panels. So if I copy that, won't worry about the straight bits. Go into that group, paste them back in. Right, if I now then explode those, and get rid of the top bit. Right, this starts to give us some lines we can work with. Get rid of that weld line, we don't need that. Join that up there. Get rid of that. Right, we should be able to just clean that up now. Apart from that bit, which wants to be awkward. Must have not been straight for some reason. Weird. Should be our outline of the walls. Thanks, Bernd. And yeah, that the game is planned to be free to play. We have every intention of making it free to play. But as I've had to caution, that is contingent on the game being funded from the likes of Kickstarter. And if Kickstarter doesn't go anywhere, we'll try other funding methods, things like the Epic Mega Grants, maybe some private investment. And if all of that fails, then we'll have to go for a paid early access. But that's very much our solution of last resort. That's not something we want to go and do. So I've actually messed this up a little bit. I think it'll be easier if I just kind of bring all that back up together. What's going on there? Just preserve that shape a minute. Let's get this fixed. Right, they're fine, they're separate objects, they can stay. Right, so I think I worked out that I wanted the lip to be about 2 inches, which is roughly 5 centimeters. Yeah, so when I'm designing the ship, I'm doing it all in SketchUp. So basically, it's all the CAD work happens in SketchUp, and then I export just plain object files, just untextured raw meshes into Unreal Engine, and then I use Unreal to do all the texturing and all the actual game-ready stuff. So I want that one on the outside, and then I want that one inside. So that goes down by 10. What's going on there? Oh, I see. There was a weld line in the way. Something is preventing that from being extruded. Is it you? Okay, change of plan. Right, if I just take a copy of that, get rid of all that, copy of the outline, delete everything else. Right, let's try that again. Oh, SketchUp, why are you like this sometimes? Well, they don't need to be there anyway, so that's fine, that can go. Okay, there's some dodgy geometry here somewhere. Is that it? Oh, there it is. Oops. Right, hopefully that's it fixed now. Can we now extrude? Yes, we can. Great. Right, so I wanted that one on top. And then that one underneath. Which means that can come down 10. And then that should go down 10. That should give us our shape that we're after. There, that's better. That was a lot more of an ordeal than it needed to be. That gives us our lip all the way around that we're after. Okay, so now that we've got the basic floor done, that one needs to be different. Right, this is going to need some templates. Actually, yeah, I use these instead because I know they're definitely in the middle where they need to be. I think that's 155 to the middle. No, that's 155 to the edge. Alright, so middle would be should be 85. Thanks, autosave. So I just need to make a template for where the beam is going to run to. And then just to make life easier, I'll just grab an origin point in the middle there. It's definitely a lot easier making making a hull structure for a saucer shape, because you can just rotate things by set angles and it all lines up perfectly. It's when you get these sort of arbitrary curves that it all starts to go wonky. Right, let me set that as 0.1. That would be 0.2. That would be 0.3. I didn't start doing this until literally days ago, and it really, really speeds up the workflow. Just saving some scenes of where you want to put things. And then you can just jump back and forth without having to scroll your way around. That's if it doesn't mess up. Okay, there's our floor beam. Don't need that anymore. To be honest, I might make that a bit more segmented than that. That's looking a bit jaggedy. Just realised what I've done there. I've added that line to literally every single wall brace. It's better. If we go for 12 edges. Why won't it pick up that edge? Try doing it from there instead. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, mouse doors. Even the tiniest crew members matter. And there will be no dolphins. That's only a small chicken. It's like 5 centimeters tall. Right, so that's how I need it at. weird. Why is it picked up the axis going that way? Right then, so that needs to be an interesting shape now, so... Oops. So if we go maybe 15 centimeters. So we could make it. Don't want it to be too boring. So what I'm actually doing right now is I'm adding, or I'm defining the cutouts. So these are obviously bridged over by the corridor bracing, but this is the floor support, so it kind of needs to duck under there. So we just need a nice shape just to define that a little bit there. And we could just do something like that. Yeah, so the weld lines, if we have a look on the top of here a minute, because they're not actually joined at the moment, so oops. So I've done them like that sort of shape. The previous ones, which I may or may not have an example of, I think this is one here actually. Yeah, I just ran a tube down the all the intersection points, but that profile is no good for a weld really. So if I capped them off here like this, which in engine looks like this. I'm going to use sort of small, subtle welds for the actual block pieces. So it's like this whole unit here. All the pieces that are part of this will have small welds, and then where two pieces join together like this, I'll have a much wider weld on the floor. But again, not like this one. So not this huge lumpy affair. Something more subtle like these ones, but maybe a bit wider. So just to sort of underline the fact that this is two big pieces that have been welded together. And I quite like that. I think that's quite effective. want it to look busy and functional. Like you can see exactly where the panels attach. You can see how the ceiling's held on. And again, on the floor, once I put them on the floor as well, you'll see how the floor is attached. And the actual carpet itself will have visible joints and visible securing points where it's been screwed down. And then this piece of floor here, for example, will be destructible. So it can be ripped, torn, destroyed completely. So there'll just be a hole there, revealing these brackets underneath, which I think will look quite cool. Or at least I hope it will look quite cool. Yeah, all of the cabling is going to run in the walls. So when I first built the wall panels, which is these ones here, these are really old, these ones, I just did an arbitrary hole so that you could get into the cavity to access stuff. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to make them textured instead. So if you imagine the embossing you get on like a jerry can, that sort of effect, maybe like an X pattern on there, just so it's not flat. And then underneath there'll be an access hatch, and that's where all the pipes and things will be running through. So for every single wall panel, you will have an access point where you can open it up and get to the stuff inside. I haven't quite decided yet whether it's going to flap up or kind of go in and slide up, but we'll experiment with that when we actually get to it. But yeah, so when it comes to repairing things or accessing one of the electrical boxes, you will need to open up the wall panels to get to them. I think something like this works. And then I have the brackets on there, and I can just duck down underneath each of these sections. Yeah, so on the inside of the wall here, the internal structure is going to be a layer of insulation, and that's just going to look like padded loft insulation. And then running in front of that, you've got all the pipes and cables and things. So when you either lose a wall panel because it's been destroyed, or take it off because you want to take it off, or open the door, I want it to be just bare, like internals, like with an airplane. If you take off the plastic white paneling on an airplane, it's really rough behind it, and it's just like cable runs and cable ties and fluff. So that's the kind of look I'm going for with this. Okay, so I just make that a component now. We should be able to rotate that around. How many times do I need it? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, then I'm going to need another one there. Might just chop that one actually. So I'm going to copy that from the middle of that one to the middle of that one, and then times that 4 times, maybe 5 times. Yeah, if I chop that, that gives us our floor structure. Yeah, so I've kind of headcanoned a substance which goes up against the outer hull. So the insulation has a layer of like bubble wrap on the inside, and the idea is that this bubble wrap, these blisters, are filled with a substance which expands rapidly and hardens when exposed to vacuum. So if you have like a micrometeorite that would have to be pretty big with how thick the hull is, but if it penetrates the hull and ruptures one of these blisters, then that hole is immediately filled and repaired. It's only going to be like a cement type material, so you'd still need to go on there and fix it properly, but at least it would stop the hull breach. Wouldn't really work for anything big hitting the hull, but for a small hull, I think that would work perfectly. Yeah, going around patching holes. No, actually, I will need to redraw these ones because they need to be longer. It's going to be a slightly different curve. If we borrow that. Yeah, that sounds messy. Forgot actually, I should have just taken a template of that when I had the chance. No matter, I can do it now. going to copy that end piece around so that we've got our marker where we need to draw the line up to. Should be 1.25 centimeters away in both directions, which looks like it is. Yeah, brilliant. Actually, with the way that curve's worked out, I might need to just move that a little bit. Yeah, a puncture event like that, you'd have to get through what is 10 centimeters or 4 inches of actual hardened hull plating, and then through an inch thick titanium shell before you even hit the bubble wrap. So it would have to be one hell of an impact to get through all of that. And if the shields are up, then it will just ping off anyway. Thanks, Moot. At least I think that's pronounced Moot. Yes, I've been extremely busy. Yeah, the shields are going to be a constant power drain if you leave them on. Oh, sorry, I just noticed a question about ladders. Yeah, the reason I steered clear away from ladders in the first place was simply because it made NPCs a nightmare. So, when you've got a staircase, NPCs can just path up the staircase quite happily. It gets more awkward when you've got a ladder, especially if you've got 2 NPCs trying to use the same ladder, which is why I've made sure all staircases can fit 2 NPCs walking in 2 different directions, just for sanity's sake. So that was the original reason there was no ladders. But then after that I thought about it some more, and the problem with ladders, especially when you don't actually need them, if you can put a staircase there, then why not put a staircase there? But if you're carrying stuff, it's really difficult to carry things up a ladder. So if you've got a box of parts or a replacement component and you need to get it up 2 decks, up a tight ladder section, that's just really inconvenient and awkward. Whereas a gantry, it's much easier to be able to have your hands free to carry things. Yeah, the main issue is that NPCs are inherently stupid, and it really doesn't take much to get them confused and unsure as to what they should be doing. I see what I've done. Getting confused there. I'm using the standard Unreal locomotion, but when it comes to all the NPC logic, then yeah, I'm doing all the logic myself. I'm not even using the normal tasks that you throw at NPCs. I'm doing the logic in Blueprint directly, because there's a lot of other code involved when it comes to things like knowing what needs to be fixed when like a wall panel or ceiling panel breaks. I'll answer for Claire because I do all the modeling stuff. It essentially everything texture-wise I do within Unreal itself. So I build the materials in Unreal, do the texturing in Unreal, and because of object count and VRAM, I mean, yes, we're using texture streaming, but because there is so much ship, if everything was to have its own unique texture, we just chew through memory like it's unbelievable. So we use a lot of tiling materials in order to add the detail without eating up all the texture memory. Actually, I can give you an example of that. So like in here, for example, all of this framework section, all of these weld lines and everything, all of this is 2 materials, and that means that this piece here is going to be 3 draw calls, because you've got the draw call for the mesh and then the 2 materials. Now if we were to go ahead and give like each individual panel its own texture, each of these braces their own texture, then all of a sudden you're getting a lot more draw calls and you're significantly increasing texture memory, because then every single mesh has a separate texture file that it has to load into RAM. So by doing it this way, you can get a lot more detail. And it's I remember reading something years ago about how Star Citizen did a lot of their texturing. They use a similar approach where they'll use simple tiling materials with with detail layers on them, and then they'll use decals to add all the fine details, which means that we can get like super high resolution textures without needing like 8K textures, because they're tiled. And as long as you can hide the tiling, you can go extremely high detail. You can see some like micro detail there with that smudge. But within these textures, so if I get one of my master materials, so you can do things like dirty them up. So, in an old trashed ship, we can, make it look that way. Or obviously, change the scale with that as well. See, the lower you go, the more tiled it gets. I find 200's usually the sweet spot. Don't really get any tiling with that. Can't remember what I had this value at now. Typical. I think it was about 70. I go down as low as 65. Cost 0.7, not 70. Yeah, I think 0.65. I think that's where it was. Yeah, so it does have occlusion culling. So obviously, things behind here aren't rendered, but occlusion culling's not perfect. Obviously, something like this, the actual the culling check on this would be the object bounds, which would be a sphere around this object. Now, if you can imagine drawing a sphere that encapsulates this entire piece, that sphere is actually quite big. So, you could probably see that sphere from over here somewhere. Like around there. So even though you can't physically see the geometry, you'll still see the sphere, which means it's still rendered. Yeah, I've had to build my own occlusion system for the lights, because by default Unreal doesn't occlude light sources, which I've always said is mental. I don't understand why, but they don't. So a light source has a minimum screen size, so if the light becomes smaller than the specified screen size, it turns off and it's no longer costing any rendering. But it doesn't do any occlusion culling whatsoever. So I could have 100 lights under the floor here, and even though I can't see them, they're still costing all of their performance. So I wrote a system that fixes that. But other than that, most things are occluded nicely. If I don't think I've got these ones set up for it. But the other thing I do is I set manual culling distances as well. So this one doesn't have one set. So if I set that to say 4,000, which is 40 meters, then normally it should go away when you zoom out. It's weird. I'm on game mode. I wonder why it's not doing that. But anyway, that's the idea. So things will disappear when they're not needed. Although why they're not disappearing now is a little concerning. Why are they not going anywhere? That's weird. I've probably got something set somewhere. But yeah, but the same with like props and things as well. The props run like the physics checks, so if they're a certain distance from the player, it really cuts down on how much physics it's calculating. Same with like NPC animations. The further you are from the player, the more the animation rate slows down and the navigation calculations slow down. If you can't see an NPC, it's only updating about once per second, whereas when you can see it, it's updating at 60 plus times per second. So that there are loads and loads of optimizations which go into this to make it possible to have, you know, a 300-meter long ship with 200 crew roaming around. You need to optimize a lot. But this, I think it's called Mass, like Mass NPC. There's a new system with UE5 which I haven't even looked at yet, which handles crowds. It's what they use in their city demo to handle the NPCs in the crowd. So we can probably do a lot with that as well, optimization-wise. Sorry, I'll stop waffling about that now. Guns. So the turrets are going to go roughly here and here, both above and below. And there'll be a room between them. So the turrets will go above and below the room, and then within that room you'll have the loading racks for the railguns. You'll have a 3D printer for printing out new projectiles, and all the capacitor banks for the beam weapons. So they'll need to be manned, and there needs to be some sort of weaponry at the back as well. But the question is where to put it, because most of the firing arcs have got something important in the way, like the engines or the FTL ring. They could potentially put a turret on top of the engine pod, but that doesn't feel right. So maybe at the back here, just one, just facing backwards, just so there's some kind of rear firing capability. But there's definitely going to be 4 turrets at the front, 2 above and 2 below. And they'll have quite a wide firing arc, you know, practically at this angle to all the way forwards. Yeah, so the NPCs, when they're not rendered, because I'm doing a render check on them, and also a deck check as well, so the NPCs know which deck they're on, and they also know which deck the player's on. So if they're not on the same deck as the player, then a lot of optimization kicks in, and it's the same with the lighting as well. If you're not on the same deck as the light costs nothing. But with the NPCs, when they're not within view, the skeletal mesh completely freezes and indeed is hidden. So it's not running any animation ticks. You can't see the mesh, so it's not costing anything. and literally the only thing the NPCs are doing is updating their pathing about once per second. So for all intents and purposes, they're not an NPC anymore. They're literally just a piece of code, a pathing code, which is pathing around, and they then become an NPC again once they're within visual range. Yeah, the weapons placements do need crew access because you're going to have capacitor banks which are going to need maintenance, and the railguns are going to have magazines that need to be loaded, so they definitely need a room associated with them. You see, I did toy with the idea of putting them on the ring itself, but then crew access becomes a problem there. I'm happy with the front. The whole front of the ship has a lot of firing arcs. Literally all of it really is completely covered by at least one turret. But yeah, but we can have a think about that once. Oh god, I'm losing my voice again. To try and steal my tea back off my cat because he keeps nicking it. Yeah. Come on, voice, you can do it. Yeah, so when we actually build the back of the ship, then we'll look at how we're doing that, and we'll have a better idea as well with things like when we've got the drone facility as well, and the launch pad for that, and what's going to be in the way of that. Yeah, I mean, there's potentially room here, to be honest, literally on the side there, because this space behind, at the moment, is just some engineering space. And the only way into that actually is from underneath. So these sections here, obviously that's going to be circular deck, but the edges of it probably will have like wings at the edges, like the top there, and that will allow you access to the inside of this section. So you can't get to any of this bit or any of this bit at the back from any of the main decks. You have to go down into engineering and back up through to get into them. So yeah, it wouldn't be the end of the world to have some tactical crew having to take that route to be able to man these stations. It's not the end of the world. Yeah, I think I'm gonna file that under, play with it later. See how it feels when we actually build that part of the ship. Right, in the meantime, I need to chop this in half, I think, actually, now I think about it. Right, so the distance between these two should be the same when mirrored. So from there to there and from there to there should be the same as from there to there. Famous last words, but they should be identical. Alright, so make sure that's a component. And just flip that one on. I think it was the red. Yeah. So it's still just me doing the modelling and everything and the work, but we are now live with our Kickstarter pre-launch, and the whole point of that Kickstarter is to be able to take on some more people, so that it's not just me working on my own. I think the first person we take on is probably going to be someone who can do character modelling, for one. And probably some VR work as well. The implementation of VR is going to require a character modeler. There's a lot of character stuff like full body IK and things that need to be sorted out for the VR. And I think, generally speaking, character locomotion and animation is one of our weakest areas right now. So that's probably the first person I'm going to try and find. And then after that, it's probably going to be someone who does volumetrics. I guess probably an FX artist who is like top grade at doing volumetric effects, because I want everything in the galaxy to be built on volumetric stuff, from black holes to gas giant clouds. I want to be flying through gas giants. So that's the kind of people we want to take on. I think the best concept, to be honest, is probably this is essentially what it is we're building ship-wise. We don't have any like sketched versions of this, any drawn versions. Drawn? I just made a new word. Yeah, do forgive me, I literally haven't slept now for, it must be coming up to 35 hours, so my brain's frazzled. But yeah, so this is probably the closest thing we've got to a concept. But if I have a look in Engine, and we turn on all the things, so on that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. I don't want any interiors, we do want that one. So obviously I don't have the covering on the upper section at the moment, because I'm still building that section out. But this is essentially the silhouette we're going to be looking at. Anything like these engine pods, which are blocky and awful, is just work in progress, so it's not going to stay looking like that. So that's basically the kind of shape we're going to look at. These sections here at the sides, the main airlocks are going to be 2 per side. We're actually going to have landing pads as well outside of the airlocks, which is very similar to the Destiny from the Stargate universe, how their shuttles are on the outside. I really like that idea, so we're going to have a couple of landing pads there, in addition to the main shuttle bay, which is practically all of this section at the back. It's going to be huge. But yeah, that's essentially the ship as it currently stands. Yeah, the problem with voxel tech, and I've seen some very interesting videos over the past week actually that show like literally trillions of voxels on screen at once. You know, down to sub-millimeter density, and something like that would be amazing because you could literally just make the whole thing destructible, and that would be really cool. But I think that's a custom engine that someone was working on, or at least a tech demo that they were building. For our purposes, it's not really a good fit when it comes to all the infrastructure in the ship and the way it's being built. Yeah, I don't think we'd get the level of detail we want from it if we were to use voxels. I guess I'm picturing something like Teardown, because even as good as that is, and as dense as the voxel density is, it's still very blocky. Where'd it go? There it is. Of course, I've just remembered I wanted that one to be curved. Well, it will do for now for testing. Yes, so SketchUp is the main modeling tool. So everything you see here turns into what you have on here. I just turn these layers off a minute. Get rid of those ones, get rid of those ones, and that one, and that one. Yeah, so all of this with the texturing and the materials and everything, all of that's done in Unreal, and all of the basic geometry is done here in SketchUp. And you'll notice, in SketchUp you've got these horrible creases and things because of the surface normals, and SketchUp really not handling surface normals very well. But that's all fixed in UE because I can just do face weighted normals, and that sorts all that out immediately. In fact, when you import some meshes, they do end up looking absolutely awful. I had a good example I spotted earlier. Slow down, camera. Where did I see it? Oh, this one. So here's one where this is an example of what happens when you export from SketchUp sometimes. The normal information is completely corrupted and awful, but all you need to do is go into the modeling tools, use face weighted normals, and it just immediately fixes the problem. And there we go, problem solved. All the normals are exactly as we'd want them to be. And face weighted normals is generally what you want for hard surface modeling. It gives you these nice crisp edges, like on the metal here. on these ones here. So these nice crisp, smooth edges, that's all thanks to face-weighted normals. Otherwise they'd be slightly fluffier, rounder, not quite as sharp as that, basically. So on the weld here, so all I've done is I've taken the same base material. So this is just this weld material is just a child of the framework metalwork, and all I've done with that is I've just thrown this texture at it. It's not even an accurate weld texture, it's just one I found that looks lumpy enough. And that's then world aligned. So that's actually a world aligned texture, so that it so when I curve it around corners and things like this one that I prepared earlier, it wraps around nicely because it's all world aligned. And actually that's important for a lot of this here. Like, you can't see the joins in the material because they're all in world space. So it's not using the UV map of the mesh. It's all world aligned materials. Yeah, exactly that. It's a different material slot. So this mesh, for example. Go away, window. So you've got like a hanger-on channel, which that's one of my templates that will sit in between these somewhere. So yeah, I got an extra material what I need to delete in SketchUp. But yeah, so these are the material slots as set by SketchUp, and I just build materials for them accordingly. You can do UV mapping in SketchUp, but it's a painful process. I find it so much easier just to do all of it in Unreal, because with more recent versions of Unreal, there are so many tools now. Like with the modeling tools, you've got so much stuff you can do. Even to the point where you can do Catmull-Clark subdivision, which I don't do in Unreal. So even though it can do it, I actually get better results doing subdivision in SketchUp than I do by importing a low poly mesh into Unreal and then doing the subdivision in Unreal itself. I'm not quite sure why that is, but SketchUp seems to handle it better from a plugin. Sorry, L. John Areno, I missed one of your questions there. Is the ring the warp drive? Yes, it is. So these are the coils. And incidentally, each one of these, although it's a solid object when I click on it, these are all separate actors, and they'll all be damageable independently. So all of this is separate individual field coils, and for every one of these that you lose, the overall efficiency of the warp bubble will be reduced to the point where it won't work. So you could probably lose a few of them and just go slower without the whole thing breaking. But if you lose too many, then it will break, and then the FTL won't work anymore. These actually do rotate in opposite directions as well. I think I'm only going to have rotating rings on this ship, and then on the Pathfinder class, which is going to be the more advanced follow-up version to this ship, I'll have them enclosed within some housing, and they won't spin. This is supposed to be the version 1 of the tech. So this is the FTL technology at its most basic, rudimentary form before humanity's progressed it and refined it in any way. Which is why it's big and it's clunky and it's a huge, great big ring. And then on future ships, we'll look at compressing the ring so it's not a perfect circle, and then we'll look at segmenting it so maybe we can lose the top and lose the bottom and just have like a wing almost, like in a cell, rotated 90 degrees sort of thing. Right, so that's there, that's there, that's there. So which one is that? That's the forward section. Right, so that's going to be that one. Oh no, that is that one. Right, so that's 1255. So that one needs to go away. And then that one needs to replace it. So there are 200 crew quarters. In fact, you can see them there. So that's one deck's worth of crew quarters. So there's 100 there, and there'll be another 100 on the other deck. But when I put in a stairwell here, which I'm planning, you're going to lose 16 crew quarters just by taking up this space. Now I can put some in here to make up for that, because I do have some spare room for some more crew quarters. But if we find that there's not enough crew, then we're going to have to make some of these doubled up. So we'll make them double rooms rather than singles. And yes, the boxy things are very much not done. So yeah, they will not look like this. They're just, that's where the sublight engines will go. But obviously a lot nicer than that. Do you have any universal lore in mind as to how the ships are built? Yes. So one of the core reasons, I suppose, for even starting this project was kind of an engineering thought experiment as to how we would build a starship. So the game is set 200 years in the future, and 200 years is not a long time. You know, a lot of the things we do now, we were doing the same 200 years ago. You know, some things like electrical technology has progressed like unbelievably far in 200 years, but some things haven't. Things like screws. You know, screws have been screws for hundreds of years. So what we've been doing is projecting how technology is today, how ships are built today, and you know, when we build aircraft carriers, you know, the biggest ocean liners, they're all made in sections like this. So you'll get what's known as a block. So that's just a pre-manufactured chunk of the ship, and then they're joined together like this to make what they call a mega block, and then the mega blocks are joined together to create the vessel, so that they're almost like Lego but welded together in separate pieces. So we're using that same manufacturing technique for this ship. So this ship is a series of blocks like these sections here, and they are all welded together to create the full ship. And I'm envisioning there being like an orbital station, say around the moon. I mean, around the moon tends to make the most sense because, you know, we can move heavy industry to the moon, mine the moon for resources, and it's much easier to get those resources into orbit from the moon than it would be from Earth. So in the game, our shipyards will be around the moon, and those shipyards will consist of multiple bays of automated construction robots. If you think about how quickly AI and automation is progressing these days, in 200 years, you know, we're going to be churning out starships just at the press of a button. The interior fitting is probably finished off by humans. So whilst all the metal work is welded by machines and constructed by machines, you know, and those blocks are probably connected together by machines as well. But the internal furnishings is probably finished off by contractors. Yeah, I think three seashells is needed in the toilets, definitely. But yeah, so I guess that's something about this project which, you know, we do mention quite a lot, but I think to the casual observer, they don't realize just how much detail we're going into with this, and how much thought is going into the actual construction of the ship, and how real or realistic we want it to be. You know, literally down to the weld lines. You know, it's like, okay, so, you know, where would we attach it? What would go where? Where would it be welded? How would we weld these pieces together? You know, just little things like that. Literally everything's been thought of, and it's like, you know, where do the cables run? How is that cable run managed? You know, how are the lights cabled? Where does that run? Where does the HVAC run to? Even to the point where we looked at airflow with HVAC as well. So yeah, everything. We're thinking of everything. Yeah, some of the backer rewards we've got penciled in for Kickstarter. Obviously, we've got name a star system, design an alien race, design a star system. You know, and that aside, things like maybe design a lore character, or at least name a lore character. There's a lot that needs to be built for the game. You know, name a manufacturer that makes something in the game world. Name a manufacturer of ships. That sort of thing. So the HVAC itself, if I turn on the D-Deck one a minute. So this is it running through the floor. This all needs to be moved because the ship is, well, each deck is 50 centimeters taller now, so these actually should be 50 centimeters lower. But the idea being, so if you imagine that this is actually in the ceiling, not on the floor, and I don't know why it's lost its material either, that's weird. But you've got the main feed that comes out on one side and goes back down the other. So you can see here that you've got the feed comes in, and it goes along the corridor like this, and then it's capped at this side, and then this is the output vent. So you'll have the inflow vent venting from the ceiling down, and then you'll have the outflow vent in the bottoms of the wall panels. So that's generally how that will work. So the wall panels will actually have vents, visible vents on them, and that will be connected to the actual HVAC piping. So this will have a conduit that runs down through the wall to the back of the panel, and then you'll have the vents in the ceiling. And then this all comes in and goes down through engineering. So that's what these are in the reactor room. That's the main conduit for the HVAC, and then it splits out for each deck, and then each ring on each deck. You can see that's where a ring used to be before the redesign. That's going to need moving at some point. But once we've modelled the cubes, so the airflow cubes within the ship, then that's when this infrastructure is going to start to actually do something. So I don't know, to use a typical Star Trek trope, pumping poison into the airflow, that would come out of the vents, and that cube of air would then be poisoned because this HVAC pipe has told it so. And the same for things like heating and stuff. So the individual output vents will heat or cool air accordingly. But that's that. If that breaks, then that cube of air will be affected directly. Yeah, so everything that would be needed on the ship will be simulated on the ship. Now things like the HVAC, although I've modelled the conduit, it's not actually doing anything right now, it's just waiting. But there'll also be plumbing, which will actually work. Obviously the electrical system works, and we do have fluid pipes that work for the reactor, but every crew quarters will have plumbing. If you turn the tap on, water will come out. If the pipe's broke, water won't come out. So it will all be modelled properly, because ultimately everything should be fully simulated. We've said on the tin it's a fully simulated ship, and it will be. To a ridiculous degree. Alright, so I'm just going to get this in engine so I can just see what this looks like. Actually, while I'm here, I shall add some more brackets down below. I will position these properly at some point, but for now, just to see what they look like, just whack a couple in there. And there will be a couple on there as well. Okay. Right, and this is ring 1, corridor, sorry, framework, D deck, sheet, that should be the one. Got so many pieces now, my naming conventions are all starting to get a little bit confusing. Alright, and then this one, actually let me just check that that actually imported, so that should be that one. If you mean in SketchUp, so I don't know, like if I'm drawing that, if you use the cursor keys, you can change what you're aligning with. So cursor down is aligned with whatever surface you're on, and then up, left, and right are the 3 cardinal axes. That makes life a lot easier. And then this one was... So this is framework, C deck for walls. And now you experience the pain of exporting this geometry. When you're making small tweaks and you just want to check it in engine, this can get quite tedious. It's like you're having to wait 10 minutes just to check that one little thing you just changed. No worries, Caleb. Thanks for joining. It's good when people ask questions, to be honest, because it helps the stream flow. Otherwise, it's me just like wittering on to myself. I think, to be honest, the reasonable solution is to use Blender. That's probably the answer to this. I'm sure if I was exporting this from Blender, it would just be instant. But yeah, SketchUp takes ages for high poly models. I think, if I recall off the top of my head, there's about 290,000 polygons in this framework piece alone. And that's because I've chamfered loads of the edges and just gone to town on the detail. Yay for Lumen. Not you Lumen, even. Nanite. You can tell I'm half asleep now. Here's a thing. For some reason, Unreal has started doing this weird thing where it just seems to abandon any attempt at anti-aliasing and then goes all flickery. And it only seems to do it if I've been alt-tabbing to it a lot. And then the only way to fix it is to restart Unreal. So if anyone knows the solution to that, do let me know. I don't know why it does it. All the reflections and things flicker as well. I'm going to hazard a guess it's probably something VRAM related. Yeah, I could stop alt tapping. That would solve the problem. Yeah, this is TAA. I thought I could do it from on there. Obviously not. Project settings, aliasing. Spell that right. Let me turn off AA a minute. No, it's still doing the weirdness. How very odd. It's only started doing this in 5.3. So, yeah. Ah, there we go. So, yeah, 270k faces for that model. That's mental. And yet, when you re-import the mesh, it is practically instant. I say practically, as it takes ages. Well, doesn't that look good with all that flickery nastiness? Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Stick a couple more brackets on there for the floor panel so it's resting on something, and I reckon that would be good. So the reason for doing this, oh look, see, this is another prime example of why you need to sort out the normals. I'm going to save everything because I can feel a crash coming on. It's got that I'm going to crash vibe about it. But anyway, yeah, so the importance of getting like these little things, like, so yeah, I've chamfered this one so it's nicer looking, but you know, deciding that right, that's going to be 5 centimeters, so I now know that that needs to be that on every wall, so as I go out and build the decks, I know I've got a consistent measurement that I'm working with, and you know, consistent framework sections, and you know, supports for panels and things. You know, and as I, you know, all of these are obviously duplicated objects, so you know, update one and they all update, which is nice, but keeping it consistent throughout the whole ship makes the build process a lot smoother and a lot quicker. You've got that little bit of tedium and sort of brain crunching at the beginning while you're trying to work it all out, but once you've worked it out, everything flies together a lot quicker. Okay, well, I think it's about time I probably went to bed. My brain has melted into some kind of indistinguishable goo, and my copy of Unreal seems to be doing the same. So I think we will call it a night there. Thank you once again for everyone who has joined and asked questions and got involved. I think we're definitely going to make this a regular thing on Saturdays primarily, or Sundays if I can't make Saturday. Yeah, absolutely. Save it all from imploding. So yeah, good night everyone, thank you, and again, please do go and check out our Kickstarter. I'm not above begging. Please, please go and check it out. Stick a follow on it, and you know, hopefully we can expand the team and get this thing fleshed out quicker. Thanks everyone, and I shall see you on the next stream.